All I want for my birthday is for Georgia to beat Florida. That was my birthday wish. Now, those people on the field have no control over that. They don't even know that it's my birthday weekend. They don't care that it's my birthday weekend. They don't care about me because they don't know me. But that's what I often wished for, and that stems back while we lived in Florida and watching that chop more than one time. I wished I'd ever seen it. Now, I'm sharing this with you to say I actually walked out of the room and said to Rhonda, I can't watch this anymore. I'm going to look over my notes for today. And while I was sitting there in my office, I thought this thought, how utterly selfish of me, and how ridiculous that I'm getting frustrated over 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys who are playing a game. And I thought, this is just stupid. That was my thought. And then about 10 minutes later, I opened up my phone to check the score. Now, I'm not proud of this. I'm being very transparent with you because I felt that was selfish. Because guess what? The other team wanted their team to win. See, when it comes to things like that, we all have what we want, and there are some things in life that really don't matter at the end of the day. There's an article that was written and researched, I'm assuming, about how selfish are you? And so I just made a few notes about the selfishness of people. According to this study, a selfish person will often dominate a conversation talking about themselves. Well, let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about let me tell you where I went. Let me tell you what I did. And the other person listens. So they dominate conversation. And then a selfish person may also say, yeah, I know you're hurting, but my pain's worse. I've got it harder than you. They turn it and flip it and say, yeah, well, that's pretty bad. But listen, let me tell you about me and my pain, my hurt, my struggles. They may also take more than they give. They're takers rather than givers, selfish people. And selfish people may also say it like this: it's either my way or the highway. You can do it the way I want it done, or you're not going to do it at all. And the final thing, well, two more things. Well, it's your fault, not my fault. I really don't have much blame in this because, if you just did it right, we wouldn't be in this situation. And then the last one is they're the center of attention. Those are selfish people by a study that was done to define what does selfishness look like. A church that is loving Jesus and a church that is expressing that deep love for Him and the people of God are people that truly say, I will always have your back. I am watching out for you, and I care about you. And this is in a sense, it is a selfless love when we love like Jesus loved. Because when we love like Jesus loved, and we look at each other and say, I love you more than anything in the world. I will help you and walk the journey of life with you. And when we love like Jesus loved, we become a magnet for people because people crave that level of acceptance, and it just nurtures an amazing atmosphere. Philippians 2, verses 1 and 2, it's not going to be on the screen, says basically this: Paul said, if there's any encouragement from belonging to Christ, is there any encouragement belonging to Christ? If there's any comfort from His love, any fellowship together in the Spirit, are your hearts tender and compassionate? He's asking these questions and wanting me and you, along with that Philippian church so many years ago, to look deep in a mirror and ask, listen, who am I in Christ? And then Paul added in verse 2 then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. And so what he was saying was, if you really love Jesus and if you really love the church, your church, then you're going to love each other more than yourself. And you're going to serve each other. You're going to honor each other. And you're going to work together with a single-minded spirit and purpose. So what does that really look like? How do we truly say, I've got your back? I've got your back. You don't have to worry about it. I am here to stand in the gap with you and for you. Well, Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4 explain it. He says it this way: do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourselves. Everyone should look not to his own interests, but rather the interests of others. Now, I've read this thousands of times. And I read it again over a month ago. And I'm thinking, there's a little gold mine right there. You know what I mean by a gold mine? There's a lot of nuggets of deep truth here. And so when you think about our church and loving our church and it being the kind of church where we are truly saying to each other, I've got your back. You're going through a tough time right now. You're going through something difficult right now. I've got your back. I've got you covered. Why can we say that? Because in these two verses, Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4, Paul writes, I'm going to read it again, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit. When we think and understand and know that we have each other's backs, we learn a couple of things. And this is the first thing I want to share with you this morning. You matter more. Let that sink in for just a minute. You matter more. When we get up in the mornings, we often do something, don't we? We get up, we go to the restroom, bathroom, and in almost every bathroom, there's something called a mirror, right? You may look at it and go, boy, I look good today. I know I just got out of bed, but look at me. I got crazy bed hair, pillow hair, and I look good. Until you look closer and you see something stuck in between one of your teeth. Well, we often we struggle with this. We look more at ourselves than we do other people. Because all of us go through things that are challenging and difficult and stressful. And when we can learn to say, you matter more, your needs, your hurts, your broken dreams, your struggles, your pains, your whatever, you mean more because you matter more. And that's what verse 3 is all talking about. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit. We need to learn to reject our selfish ambitions. How many of us have great ideas? Well, I'll raise my hand. I think I have pretty good ideas. Bobby Reed raised his hand. Sherry Reed raised hers. Some of us, all right. A few of us say, yep, I got great plans. The rest of you are just saints. Or you just can't be honest with yourself. I don't know which. You figure that out. But when you think about your ambition, your plans, see, Paul wrote to this church and he said to them and us that none of us should do anything out of our own selfish goals, purposes, dreams. We should do what God wants us to do. But many times we become selfish. And we get ahead and get in the way of seeing other people's hurts, pains, and sorrows, and distresses, and then that frustrates us. When we learn to look at someone and maybe walk in their shoes for a little bit. You know, it's difficult to walk in another person's shoes. And the only way we can walk in another person's shoes is to be in a community with them, talk with them, ask them, how's it going? What are you going through? What good happened in your life this week? And we listen rather than self-promoting and talking about our lives and our joys or our failures. Well, we need to learn to share, and we need to be able to convince our mind and our heart that you matter more. I guess we could say, what would it look like if I sat down with a Florida fan and asked this question? How have the past 8 years been for you? I mean, the Dodgers won the World Series again. Freddie Freeman abandoned the Atlanta Braves and went to the Devil's Land. And he and others, they just ruined the hopes and dreams of those poor folks in Toronto. I'm being a little silly. But you see, when we take things in our life, whether it's sports or other things in our life, and we elevate them to things that are most important when they're actually least important. And when we learn to look at people's real hurts and real pains and real sorrows and say, I'm going to reject my selfish ambitions, my selfish desires. I'm not wanting to get ahead in life so that I can get the accolades. But I truly want to be a servant to someone else. When Paul wrote, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, the word conceit literally means our vain personal vanity. Those things that are in our life that we elevate as important and necessary. We act in ways at times that promotes ourselves rather than lifts up our brother or sister. We need, again, to learn to walk in their shoes and see life from their journey, their perspective, their walk. That's not easy to do. In fact, it's very difficult to do. But here's what happens when we fail to do that, when we don't put our selfish ambition or conceit, and if we don't in humility consider others in our church as more important than ourselves, it leads to division, it leads to strife, it leads to conflict, because we are by nature people of fight. Well, I don't mean our church specifically, I mean all people. That's why news is so popular amongst folk. We want to see and almost enjoy seeing all of the conflict on the news. People post on social media all the time. Look at what I just did, or look at what I just saw, look at what I just experienced, and it's people arguing and fighting. What would it look like if we just changed that? And we saw each other serving more and more and more. If we said it's not about me, it's about you and your needs and your struggles. If we gave in more than insisting on it our way. Well, Paul said in Philippians 2:3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourself. And that's why we love our church, because we work hard on this. We don't do it perfectly, but we're working on it. When we try to say, you're more important than I am, you value, or your value is great value. And then there's this other thing in verse number 4. Everyone should not look to his own interest, but rather the interest of others. The idea here is that your needs are more important than my needs. We all have needs. We have needs to be heard. We have needs to be fed. We have needs to be loved. We have needs to be forgiven. We have needs to be encouraged. We have all these needs in our life, and we may not always know what's going on in someone else's life. But that may be that we are not asking the right questions. This is how we do that, by cultivating humility in our own life. It's that idea of looking at another person and saying, you know, I got stuff going on, but I'm not going to talk about my stuff. I want to hear what's going on in your life. And we learn to cultivate in our life this spirit of humility. If we were to look back through Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John's gospel, with this question in mind, write down every instance where Jesus promoted himself. You know, some of you are smiling because you're like, well, he never did. If we want to be more like Jesus, what do we need to do? Cultivate humility. In fact, in the next few verses, Jesus and Marcus Merrick talked about that back in October, that Jesus, God, became one of us for one purpose, to live a perfect sinless life and die on a cross, be buried dead, to show and display not just for us the forgiveness of our sin, not just to be risen from the dead so that we could live forever with him in heaven, but to show us what real humility looks like, to show us what real love looks like, to be a servant. And yet we struggle because this is the great struggle, to cultivate humility. This is the most important thing for us to really work on in our life. And it's hard to do this because we need to work hard on seeing other people's needs so we can meet their needs. All of us have hurts. I mean, I'm looking out now and I can see your faces, and I know I don't know everything, but I know a lot of your stories. I know, talk about stories, Miss Angie. I know a lot of your stories, and I know some of the things that you have gone through, some of the things you are currently going through, and guess what? I don't know all of your stories because some of us are private. We keep that bottled up and tight within our own little world because we don't want to maybe appear weak, but we need to learn to let it out. We need to share our hurts and our sorrows and our broken dreams and the things that discourage us, because in doing that, we could be that church, that people that says, you know what? Your needs over my needs because you matter more. I've got your back. I'm going to walk with you through this journey. Before the service started, I tried to get to a couple of my Georgia Tech brothers. I didn't get to all of you, but I tried to get to some of you. And I wanted to say, and I mean this with all sincerity, I'm sorry for your loss. It is a loss. If you're a Georgia Tech fan, you are having an incredible year, right, Tom? I mean, undefeated. A quarterback, 45 years old. No, he's not 45. But a quarterback that was doing an incredible job. And last night, it didn't happen. But for people, those things, while it's not the most important thing in life, when you have hope and those hopes are crushed, it hurts a little bit. You see, when we learn to say your needs more over mine, it matters. And we work hard on looking at others and saying, I see your needs and I want to meet that need. When we do that, to the nth degree, we become a church where we have love like no other. Now, this is much deeper than football, basketball, baseball. It's much deeper than any sport. This is about going through life struggles, wondering how you may put food on the table. It may come from wondering, will my loved ones survive this illness? It may come from any number of fears or concerns. It may come from broken relationships. It may come from a marriage that's falling apart. It may come from a child who's gone wayward. It comes from all over the place. But when we learn to say, your needs over my needs, you mean more to me than anything else. When we learn, like Philippians 2:5, and I'm going to read it, you must have the same attitude Jesus Christ had. When we learn to do that, we are well on our way to becoming a church that says, I've got your back. You see, our church is not just this building. You know, when we say Pleasant Ridge Baptist, we think of the building. We may think about our history, and that's important too. We may think about all of our traditions of the past and the present, and that's important, but it's not the most important. We may think about the way we do church, the music that we sing. You're a preacher. Sometimes you may want, we need another one. I don't know. Anyway, we may think about our ministries or the lack of ministries. We may think about our style, but none of that really matters because the church is not any of that. The church is me and you. It's us. We are Pleasant Ridge Baptist Church. And we are the people that God has placed here to love each other and to love our community and to serve each other and to serve our community. And God brings people and moves people. And as God brings us together, we are constantly ever changing. And we're constantly struggling to look at each other and say, I've got your back. I've got your back. I'm going to love you like Jesus. It's a challenge, isn't it? Some people are easy to love. Some of us, well, we're not easy to love. But we got to love each other, the lovable and the unlovable. And so when we understand this, we'll be on a road that puts a smile on the face of Jesus himself. My prayer is that we will do that constantly, and we will love each other like Jesus loves.